Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking a truly bizarre but honestly utterly fascinating piece of modern cinema, Robert Rodriguez's 2007 film Planet Terror. We're going to look at the undeniable genius hiding behind a movie that, on the surface at least, looks like absolute unapologetic trash. Now, this film was originally released as one half of the Grindhouse double feature, and it immediately threw audiences a visual curveball. I mean, it's a movie featuring a woman with an assault rifle for a leg, melting zombies, and rampant military paranoia, but as you'll see, the most captivating character of all might just be the film print itself. So think about this core paradox for a second. How exactly do you take a movie shot in 2007 with millions of dollars, right, and a highly skilled crew, and aggressively force it to mimic the battered, cigarette-stained, entirely degraded look of a forgotten 1970s exploitation film? It is an incredibly counterintuitive challenge. In an era where filmmakers were practically tripping over themselves to achieve absolute high-definition perfection, Rodriguez decided to deliberately wreck his own pristine footage. And he didn't just do it for nostalgia's sake, he did it to actively manipulate how you, the viewer, experience the story.
Okay, let's dive straight into this. Section 1, the digital paradox, or cutting-edge filth.
Consider the deep structural irony of how this movie was actually made. Rodriguez shot Planet Terror entirely on the Panavision Genesis camera. At the time, that was literally the absolute cleanest, most advanced digital system available. It captured images with infinite depth, completely noise-free shadows, and super vibrant colors. But his target aesthetic? A heavily degraded analog 1977 Grindhouse print. So Rodriguez used the absolute best digital technology available to artificially simulate the dirtiest analog trash. We're always subtly aware we're watching a high-budget modern spectacle that's basically just playing dress-up in historical grime. That bright fluorescent crimson blood is just hiding beneath layers of digital dirt.
To pull off this illusion, Rodriguez digitally painted physical scars right onto his pristine pixels. We're talking simulated film scratches violently tearing down the frame, artificial audio pops that sound exactly like dust on a projector lens, vertical green lines slashing across the actors' faces, and this crazy jittery gate weave that makes the whole picture bounce up and down like it's slipping off the projector's gears. It is breathless, it's kinetic, and here's the kicker, it is entirely computer-generated. He is meticulously programming digital effects to perfectly mimic the careless physical decay of old celluloid film.
But these effects really aren't just some cheap visual gimmick. Which brings us to Section 2, an emotional barometer, or when the film starts to panic.
In normal filmmaking, the camera and the film stock are basically supposed to be invisible. You aren't really supposed to notice them. But in Planet Terror, the cinematic medium itself is constantly screaming for your attention. Rodriguez uses all that digital decay as a totally interactive narrative layer. When the on-screen action intensifies, like when the zombies swarm or some horrific secret gets revealed, the digital film stock actually reacts. It literally starts to panic. The colors start bleeding completely out of their boundaries, the artificial grain gets way thicker, and the frame jitters violently. The movie is using digital degradation as an emotional barometer, making you physically feel the virulent weight of the apocalypse through the decomposition of the image itself.
Our source material observes this brilliantly, stating, "This structural decay detaches the modern viewer from reality, plunging them into a hyper-stylized sandbox." Basically, by wrapping this story up in the cozy, dirty safety blanket of historic exploitation trash, Rodriguez buys himself absolute creative freedom. Because the film looks so damaged and structurally incorrect, our brains just turn off our normal expectations for real-world physics, mortality, and logic. This digital decay gives him permission to push the story into complete logic-defying absurdity, like our hero Cherry Darling soaring through the air using an assault rifle as a prosthetic leg, and we just accept it because we are happily playing in his hyper-stylized sandbox.
And this sandbox approach leads to one of the most audacious moments in modern cinema. Section 3, the missing reel, a narrative masterstroke.
Now, to fully appreciate this trick, we kind of need a quick history lesson. Back in actual 1970s Grindhouse theaters, prints were shipped from city to city, treated terribly, and just taped back together whenever they snapped. So very often, a literal chunk of the celluloid would be lost forever. This is what's known as the missing reel. You'd be watching a movie, the screen would bubble and burn up, and suddenly, bam, you jump 10 minutes into the future. Well, Rodriguez takes this historical theater defect and playfully weaponizes it right in the middle of Planet Terror's second act, over at JT's Bone Shack restaurant.
When he drops that missing reel title card and entirely skips the climax of the second act, he pulls off an absolute narrative heist. First off, it completely bypasses tedious logistical pacing. We don't have to sit there and watch the characters slowly plan their escape from the burning restaurant. We just drop right into the crazy aftermath. Second, it massively elevates character myth-making. By explicitly refusing to show us how the mysterious drifter Wray managed to save everyone, his capabilities become instantly legendary. The joke is basically that his escape was so impossible, the film itself caught on fire trying to record it. And finally, it forces thematic irony. We, the audience, have to do the heavy lifting, filling in the blanks using our own knowledge of zombie movie tropes. It is just brilliant.
But skipping scenes certainly doesn't mean the movie is lazy. Far from it. Section 4. Chaos with clarity, or discipline madness.
Here is where we really have to separate the myth of the Grindhouse from the reality of Rodriguez's talent. Let's be real, most actual 1970s B-movies were pretty boring, mostly incoherent and duct-taped together with pure desperation. But beneath the unhinged, blood-soaked surface of Planet Terror, the filmmaking itself is incredibly disciplined. Rodriguez deeply understands rhythm. Even when bodies are literally exploding and motorcycles are flying through hospital windows, there is absolute spatial coherence. The chaos is always readable. Honestly, a lot of modern $100 million action blockbusters could learn a serious lesson from the spatial clarity of this dirty little zombie movie. And this brilliantly illustrates a point from our source, which notes, the gore in Planet Terror isn't merely shock value. It's spectacle, performance, a celebration of tactile filmmaking. See, while the film's scratches and gateweave are highly calculated digital effects, the gore is overwhelmingly practical. It's gooey, it's messy, and it's gloriously untethered from grim realism. Instead of that weightless, frictionless CGI sludge that seems to dominate so much of today's horror, Rodriguez gives us handcrafted madness. It feels like an animator or a stunt coordinator is conducting a violent, hilarious symphony, purely to celebrate the shared joy of practical effects.
Which brings us to our final takeaway. Section 5. The value of fun and a spectacular mess.
I really want to leave you all with a provocative thought here. Can style actually be substance? Must a film be considered respectable to be a cinematic masterpiece? Look, Planet Terror isn't a deep psychological meditation. It's a movie where someone literally uses a motorcycle as a projectile weapon against a horde of mutants. But dismissing it as mindless totally misses the point. Entertainment has value. Pure visual momentum and creative danger have value. In an era where so much of cinema is focus grouped into safe, perfectly polished, boring content, Robert Rodriguez used cutting-edge digital effects to deliberately break his movie, all just to remind us of the anarchic joy of exploitation cinema. It challenges us to realize that a film doesn't need to be respectable to be profound. Sometimes, a spectacular, blood-soaked mess is exactly the masterpiece we need. So, what do you think? Does a movie need prestige to be a masterpiece, or is unapologetic fun more than enough? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and remember to always keep looking beneath the surface of the media you love.